The spaceport was noisy and crowded, full of people from many worlds, all rushing to different places. Among the busy market stalls, a man named Jax moved slowly, watching the strange things around him. Jax was a gambler, known for taking big risks, but today, his luck seemed quiet, his mind heavy. He was alone, with no friends to share his small victories or losses, just the constant hum of the city around him. As Jax walked past a small hidden stall near the shadows, something caught his eye. It was a tiny cage, no bigger than the ones used for parrots back on Earth. But this cage held something strange. Inside, barely moving, was a very small alien girl, no taller than a bird, with skin that shimmered faintly under the flickering lights. Her eyes were wide and scared, filled with a mix of fear and hope that Jax could feel, even from where he stood. The stall owner was a quiet man who never smiled, and he seemed to watch Jax carefully. Rumors said the cage was cursed, that anyone who bought it would be followed by bad luck. Some said the girl inside was not just tiny, but very powerful, trapped by cruel people. Jax had heard stories like this before. But something about this little alien girl felt different, real. Jax stopped and looked at the cage longer than he wanted to. He remembered his lonely nights and thought maybe this strange little girl needed someone. His heart, cold from years of losing and winning at gambling tables, felt a soft pull. He moved closer, and the girl looked straight at him, blinking slowly, as if she understood him. Suddenly, the market noise seemed to fade away for Jax. He saw the fear in her eyes, and a strange thought grew in his mind. Maybe he could help her, but helping her would not be easy or safe, because the cage was not for sale in any normal way. The owner wanted something special, something dangerous in exchange for the tiny alien girl. Jax asked quietly, "How much for the cage?" The owner smiled, a cold smile that did not reach his eyes. "You cannot buy it with money, human." Jax frowned. "Then what do you want?" The owner leaned close and whispered, "A gamble win, and the cage is yours. Lose, and you lose everything you have." Jax's eyes widened for a moment, but his smile returned, sharp and sure. He loved gambling, especially when the stakes were high, and now the prize was a tiny alien girl. He thought about the risk, losing all he had, and about the reward, setting the girl free. His heart beat faster, and he nodded. "Deal." The owner clapped his hands softly, and the stall around them seemed to grow darker. A crowd gathered quickly, watching with interest, knowing this game was not just any game. The rules were simple. A game of chance and skill, with cards and dice. But the owner had strong players ready. Jax sat down at a small table, his eyes on the cage as the little alien girl watched him quietly. The game started slow, and Jax won the first round easily. The crowd whispered about his luck, some cheering quietly, others frowning. The alien girl's eyes seemed to brighten a little, and Jax smiled inside, feeling a small hope. He knew this was only the start, and the next rounds would be harder. But he did not fear. Jax thought about the girl's life, trapped, small, and scared, and he promised himself he would not fail. He remembered hearing how cruel the galaxy could be, how some people sold others like objects, but here, in this dark corner, something pure and fragile waited for him. The tiny alien girl was more than just a prize. She was a chance to change his lonely life too. The second round came, and the players grew serious, their faces hard and cold. Jax had to focus more, his hands steady but his mind sharp. The owner watched with quiet pleasure, knowing the stakes were rising. The crowd held their breath as Jax played each card carefully, reading the other players' moves. The alien girl shifted slightly in the cage, her tiny hands gripping the bars. Jax looked at her and felt a sudden rush of protectiveness. He was no hero, just a gambler with luck on his side. But now he had a reason to fight. The last round was coming, and everything would depend on that one final bet. As the dealer shuffled the cards, Jax took a deep breath and thought about what freedom meant. For the tiny alien girl, Freedom meant escaping the cage, the market, the cruel hands that sold her. For Jacques, freedom was something he never had. A life without fear, without loneliness, without pain. He knew he had to win. Not just for the girl, but for himself too. The owner smiled again and said, "Place your bet, human." Jacques pushed all his chips forward, his voice steady. "I gamble everything." The market fell silent, and the eyes of many watched him closely. The tiny alien girl blinked, and for a moment, it seemed like she hoped too. The cards were dealt, and the game began. Jacques felt the weight of the moment, the strange hope in his chest. He played carefully, his hands steady, his mind sharp. The tiny alien girl waited, trapped but watching, waiting for her chance at freedom. The crowd watched quietly as the cards were shuffled again. Jacques felt the heat rise in his chest. Knowing this game was more than just luck, he looked at the tiny alien girl in the cage once more, her eyes calm but watching closely. She seemed to trust him already, even though they had never spoken a word. The first rounds were easy for Jacques, his hands moving fast and sure. But the players he faced now were different, skilled, sharp, and dangerous. They did not like to lose, and they watched him like hunters waiting for a mistake. Jacques knew one wrong move could cost him everything, including the chance to free the girl. His mind raced as he played, trying to read each opponent. Each card he played was a step closer to freedom or a step into darkness. He thought about why he risked so much for the tiny alien girl. It was not just for the prize or the money, but something deeper inside him. Long ago, Jacques had lost someone important, a friend who had believed in him. Since then, he lived in shadows, trusting no one and hiding his true feelings. But seeing the girl trapped in the cage brought back memories he tried to forget. She was small and weak, but her eyes held a strength that touched his heart. As the game continued, Jacques remembered stories he had heard about the girl. They said she was from a faraway planet where people lived free and happy. But she was taken from her home by cruel traders and sold to this market. Now she was trapped, locked away like an animal, waiting for someone to save her. Jacques' hands shook for a moment, but he quickly controlled his fear. He needed to win, no matter the cost, for the girl and for himself. The crowd around the table grew louder, their voices mixing with the noise of the market. Some cheered for Jacques, others cursed him, but all watched with wide eyes. Suddenly, one of the players tried to cheat, slipping an extra card into his hand. Jacques saw it in time, and his eyes flashed with anger. He called the cheat out loud, and the crowd gasped. The cheater tried to deny it, but the evidence was clear. The owner of the cage frowned but said nothing. He liked the game to be hard but fair, and cheating was not allowed. Jacques felt a small victory inside him, but he knew the fight was far from over. The alien girl watched quietly, her tiny hands clutching the bars of the cage. The next rounds were more dangerous, with higher bets and stronger players. Jacques stayed calm, his eyes sharp, his mind working. Faster than ever, he thought about how the girl must feel, trapped and scared, but still hoping. He promised himself he would not let her down, no matter what happened. As the game reached its final round, tension filled the air. Jacques' heart beat fast, and sweat ran down his forehead. He looked at the alien girl one last time before the cards were dealt. She blinked slowly, as if wishing him luck, and he smiled back. The final round began, and the players moved quickly. Jacques used all his skill and luck, watching every card, every move. The owner's eyes never left him, cold and calculating. Jacques knew this was the moment that would decide everything. The crowd held its breath as the last cards were played. Jacques' hand was strong, but so was his opponent's. The owner leaned forward, waiting for the winner to be clear. Jacques felt a flash of doubt, but pushed it aside, focusing on the game. Suddenly, the alien girl's cage shook slightly, as if she was holding her breath. Jacques took a deep breath and made his final move. The room exploded with noise as the owner slammed his hand on the table. Jacques had won, the crowd cheering loudly around him. The owner's smile faded, replaced by a cold glare. He said, You have won the cage and the girl inside. But be warned, this is only the beginning, Jax nodded. Feeling a strange mix of relief and fear, he reached out and touched the cage gently, as if promising the girl she was free. The tiny alien girl looked at Jax with new hope in her eyes. For the first time, she saw a chance to leave the cage behind. Jax stood up, the weight of the game still heavy on his shoulders. He knew the real fight was just starting, and danger was close. The crowd began to disperse, the market returning. To its noisy chaos, Jax carried the cage carefully. Feeling the tiny weight of the girl inside, he thought about their future, uncertain, but full of hope. He was ready to gamble again, this time for their freedom together. The alien girl whispered softly, a sound Jax barely heard. It was a small word, a name, or maybe a thank you. Jax smiled, knowing that this small voice was the start of something new. Together, they would face the darkness and find a way to be free. The spaceport lights flickered as Jax walked away, the cage closed. To his heart, he looked back once, seeing the girl's eyes shining with courage. He whispered to himself, "I will not lose you." The game was over, but their story was only beginning. The air was thick with tension as Jax prepared for the last round. His hands felt steady, but his heart pounded like a drum in his chest. The tiny alien girl watched from her cage, her eyes shining like stars in the dim light. She seemed calm, but Jax knew she was hoping for freedom, just like him. The owner of the cage stood nearby, his face unreadable. He knew this final bet would decide everything, and he wanted to win. The other players circled around the table, silent but alert, each waiting to see if Jax's luck would hold or break. Jax thought about what he had risked so far, all his money, his pride, his future, but none of that mattered now except winning the tiny alien girl's freedom. He remembered the look in her eyes when he first saw her in that cage, a look of fear, but also a quiet strength that no one else saw. The dealer shuffled the cards slowly, and Jax watched. Every movement, his mind raced through possibilities, trying to guess what cards would come next. He knew the owner and the other players were watching him closely, trying to find a weakness, a sign of doubt or fear. Jax dealt the cards with care, his fingers steady despite the weight on his soul. He placed his bet in the center of the table. All in, the crowd held their breath, waiting for the final hand. The tension in the room was almost too much to bear. The dealer flipped the cards one by one. Jax studied each card, his mind calculating every chance. His opponents stayed quiet, their faces cold and hard. Jax knew some of them would try to cheat. As they had before, suddenly one of the players moved too fast, trying to hide a card. Jax's eyes narrowed and he called out the cheat. The crowd gasped and the player froze, caught in the act. The owner frowned but did not stop the game. He wanted a fair fight, even if it was hard on Jax. Jax smiled inside, knowing this was his chance. He played his cards with care, trusting his luck and skill. The tiny alien girl leaned close to the bars of her cage, her small hands gripping tightly as if she felt the game's tension too. The final card was flipped, and Jax's heart jumped. He had a strong hand, but so did his opponent. The owner leaned forward, eyes sharp and cold. He wanted to see who would win this battle of fate. Jax kept his face calm, hiding the storm inside. He slowly pushed his cards forward, showing the winning hand. The room exploded with noise as the crowd cheered. Jax had won. The tiny alien girl's freedom was now his. The owner's smile disappeared, replaced by a cold glare. He said quietly, "You have won the cage and the girl inside, but this is only the beginning." Jax nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and fear. He reached out carefully and touched the cage, promising the girl freedom. The tiny alien girl looked up at him with new hope in her eyes. For the first time, she saw a chance to leave the cage behind. Jax lifted the cage gently, feeling the small weight of the girl inside. He knew the real challenge was just starting, and danger was near. As the crowd began to disperse, The market returned to its usual noise. Jax carried the cage close to his chest, protecting the girl. He thought about the future, uncertain but filled with hope. He was ready to fight for her freedom, no matter what came. The alien girl whispered softly, a sound Jax barely heard. It was a small word, a name, or maybe a thank you. Jax smiled, knowing that this small voice was the start of a new bond. Together, they would face the dangers ahead and find freedom. The market lights flickered as Jax walked away, the cage held tight. He looked back once. Seeing the girl's eyes shining with courage, he whispered to himself, "I will not lose you." The gamble was over. But their story was only beginning. Suddenly, a shadow moved near the edge of the market. Jax's eyes narrowed as he noticed a group of dark figures watching him. He knew the owners of the cage would not give up so easily. They would come back to take the girl, no matter what. Jax quickened his pace, moving through the crowded streets. The alien girl seemed calm but alert, sensing the danger. Jax promised himself he would keep her safe, no matter the cost. They had both risked everything for freedom, and now they had to fight for it. As they disappeared into the dark alleys, the tiny alien girl looked up at Jax. She whispered again, a soft sound full of trust and hope. Jax smiled and nodded, feeling a new purpose inside him. Together, they would find a new life, free from cages and danger. The market grew loud again as people moved past, but Jax stayed hidden in a dark corner. He held the cage close, feeling the tiny weight of the alien girl inside. She looked up at him with big eyes, filled with hope but also fear. Jax knew the owners of the cage would come back for her. And soon, he had to think fast and find a way to keep her safe. The crowded streets were full of danger, and they could not stay long. Jax whispered softly to the girl, even though she did not understand his words. He promised to protect her and find a place where she could be free. The alien girl watched him quietly, her small hands gripping the bars of the cage. She seemed to understand more than Jax expected, sensing his care and promise. Jax felt a strange connection growing between them. For the first time in a long while, he did not feel alone. He looked around, searching for a safe way out of the market. The shadows moved, and Jax could see figures watching from a distance. The owners and their guards would not give up so easily. They wanted the cage and the girl, no matter what it cost. Jax's mind raced as he planned their escape. He knew the main gates were too crowded and watched by guards. He thought of the narrow alleys and old tunnels beneath the city. Dangerous places, but maybe their only chance to get away. He carefully lifted the cage, making sure the girl felt safe. She reached out her tiny hand, touching his fingers through the bars. Jax smiled and whispered, "We will be free soon." Girl blinked slowly, as if understanding his words. Together, they slipped into the narrow alleys, moving quickly and quietly. The city's noise faded behind them, replaced by the sound of their footsteps. Jax's eyes scanned every shadow, watching for signs of danger. The alien girl stayed close, her small body trembling but trusting him. As they moved deeper into the maze of alleys, Jax told himself to stay calm. He could not afford mistakes now, not when freedom was so close. The air grew colder, and the light faded as they entered an old tunnel. Jax felt the weight of the cage grow heavier with each step. The tunnel smelled of dust and rust, but it was safer than the crowded streets. Jax paused for a moment, listening carefully. He heard footsteps behind them, soft but growing closer. The guards were tracking them, and time was running out. He picked up his pace, heart pounding. The alien girl looked up at him with wide eyes. Jax whispered, "Hold on, we are almost safe." She reached out again, her fingers brushing his palm. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a small room filled with old machines. Jax's eyes adjusted to the dim light, and he spotted a broken spaceship in the corner. He smiled for the first time in days, seeing hope in the wreck. Maybe they could fix it and escape the city for good. The alien girl crawled out of the cage, carefully, her small feet touching the ground. She looked around with wonder. touching the cold metal and blinking at the strange lights. Jax watched her closely, feeling a deep protectiveness. She was fragile but brave, and he knew she was special. He checked the door to the room and locked it behind them. They were safe. For now, but only for a short time, Jax sat down next to the girl, looking at her tired face. He promised himself he would find a way to fix the ship and fly away from danger. The girl reached out and touched his face gently. Jax felt a warmth spread inside, stronger than any luck he had known. She made a soft sound, almost like a word, but he did not understand. Still, he knew they were connected in a way words could not explain. Jax opened a small bag and took out some food and water. He shared it with the girl, who ate slowly but gratefully. They rested for a moment, but Jax's mind never stopped working. He planned their next moves carefully, knowing the enemy would not wait. Outside the room, footsteps echoed louder, and voices spoke in low tones. Jax held the girl close, ready to defend her if needed. He whispered, "Stay quiet and trust me." The girl nodded, her eyes full of trust and hope. Hours passed, and the city outside grew quieter. Jax worked on the broken spaceship, using old tools he found nearby. The alien girl watched him, her small hands resting on his arm. They were partners now, connected by a fragile hope and a dangerous future. Jax thought about the road ahead, long and full of risks, but he no longer feared it alone. He looked at the tiny alien girl, her eyes shining in the dark, and he knew he would fight for her freedom until the end. As dawn approached, Jax finished his work on the ship. It was not perfect, but it could fly, just enough to escape. He smiled and helped the girl back into her cage, gently. Together, they prepared to leave the city behind forever. The alien girl looked up at Jax, a small smile on her face. He smiled back, feeling a new strength inside. They had escaped the market, but their journey was just beginning. Freedom was close, but danger still waited in the shadows. Jax took a deep breath and started the engines. The old spaceship hummed to life, filling the room with light and sound. The girl's eyes sparkled with hope. Jax whispered, "Hold on, we're flying to freedom." The spaceship moved slowly through the dark sky, leaving the city far behind. Jax sat beside the tiny alien girl, watching her closely. She was quiet but alert, her eyes shining with curiosity and hope. For the first time since he met her, Jax felt something new, a soft warmth in his heart. They had escaped danger, but the future was still unknown and full of risks. Jax did not know where to go or what waited for them beyond the stars, but the girl, small and fragile, seemed to trust him completely. She reached out her tiny hand, and Jax gently took it in his. As the ship flew through space, Jax tried to learn more about the alien girl. She could not speak his language, but her eyes told stories of pain and courage. Sometimes she made soft sounds, almost like a song. Jax listened carefully, feeling a strange peace in the quiet moments. The girl's skin shimmered softly in the dim light of the cockpit. Her small body moved with surprising strength and grace. Jax noticed her quick reflexes and the way she seemed to understand things without words. He began to believe she was not just a victim, but someone very special. One night, as the ship floated near a bright star, the alien girl suddenly stood up. She reached out and touched the control panel, her fingers glowing faintly. Jax watched in surprise as the lights on the ship flickered and changed colors. She smiled softly, as if happy to share her secret. Jax realized then that the girl had powers he did not understand. Her small size hid a strength beyond anything he had seen before. He felt a mix of wonder and protectiveness, knowing she needed him as much as he needed her. Together, they were not just two lost souls, but a team with a chance to survive days passed as they traveled through the stars. Jax taught the girl simple words and phrases. She learned quickly, her bright eyes sparkling with excitement. They laughed sometimes, sharing moments of joy in the lonely vastness of space. But the danger was never far away. Jax knew the owners of the cage would not give up easily. They had powerful friends and ships hunting for them across the galaxy. Each day, Jax scanned the stars, watching for signs of pursuit. One evening, the ship's alarm suddenly blared loudly. Jax jumped up and saw a fast enemy ship closing in. On them, he grabbed the controls and prepared for a fight. The alien girl stood beside him, her small hands glowing brighter than before. As the enemy ship fired, Jax dodged and weaved through space debris. The girl used her powers to shield the ship from damage. Together, they fought like a team, moving with speed and skill. Jax realized then that the alien girl was not just a prisoner but a warrior after a long battle. The enemy ship gave up and disappeared into the darkness. Jax let out a breath he did not know he was holding. The alien girl looked at him and smiled. Tired but proud, Jax smiled back, feeling a strong bond between them. From that moment on, their trust grew deeper. The alien girl no longer hid behind the cage or fear. She showed Jax parts of her world, stories in her eyes and heart. Jax shared his own past, his loneliness, and dreams for the future. They were different in many ways, but they found a common hope: freedom. Jax promised to protect her, no matter the cost. The girl promised to stand by him, using her powers to help and protect. Together, they were stronger than either could be alone. One night, as they looked out at the stars, Jax asked softly, "What is your name?" The girl smiled and whispered a word that sounded like music. Jax repeated it slowly, feeling the magic in the sound. That night, under the endless sky, a new friendship was born. Two souls connected by chance and courage, the tiny alien girl and the human gambler, together, ready to face whatever the galaxy had in store. The ship moved on, cutting through the darkness. Jax felt hope growing inside him like never before. The girl's small hand in his was a promise. They were no longer alone. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like a new beginning. The stars outside the small ship blinked quietly, but inside, tension filled the air. Jax sat near the controls, his eyes sharp, watching the glowing screen. The tiny alien girl stood beside him, her hands glowing faintly, ready for whatever might come. They both knew their enemies were close, and the fight was near. Suddenly, the ship's alarms screamed loudly, filling the cabin with noise. Jax grabbed the controls, his heart racing. The enemy ship appeared on the screen, moving fast and armed. With weapons, Jax's hands tightened on the controls as he prepared to defend. The tiny alien girl stepped forward, her small fingers glowing brighter. Jax watched in surprise as a shield formed around the ship, shimmering like glass. The enemy fired first, lasers striking the shield but failing to break through. Jax smiled, feeling hope rise inside him. The enemy ship moved closer, trying to break the shield with stronger attacks. Jax piloted the ship with skill, dodging and weaving through space debris. The alien girl stayed calm, focusing her energy on keeping the shield strong. Together, they were a team, fighting side by side. Suddenly, the enemy ship launched small fighter drones, fast and deadly. Jax and the alien girl worked quickly, destroying the drones one by one. Jax fired the ship's weapons while the girl used her powers to protect them both. Their movements were fast and precise, like they had trained together for years. The enemy ship tried a new attack, firing a powerful beam at the shield. The shield shook but held firm, glowing brighter under the alien girl's power. Jax saw the enemy pilot's face on the screen, cold, angry, determined. He knew this fight was not just about the girl or the ship, but about pride and power. The battle lasted for what felt like hours. Jax and the alien girl never gave up, fighting with every breath. The enemy ship finally began to retreat, damaged and defeated. Jax let out a breath of relief, his hands still shaking from the fight. The alien girl smiled, tired but proud. Jax looked at her and felt a deep respect. She was more than just a small alien in a cage. She was a fighter. Together, they had faced the enemy and won. But the victory came with a cost. Their fight had sent a message across the galaxy. They were now marked as fugitives, wanted by powerful enemies. Jacques knew their journey would be harder from now on. As the ship moved away from the battlefield, Jacques and the alien girl talked quietly, sharing their thoughts. They knew they had to be strong and careful. Their trust in each other was the key to survival. Jacques thought about the people who had trapped the girl in the cage. He felt anger and sadness, but also a burning need to protect her. The alien girl reached out, touching his arm softly. It was a simple gesture, but it meant everything to Jacques. Days passed as they flew through the stars. Jacques and the alien girl grew closer. Learning from each other, she taught him about her world, her people, and their dreams. He shared stories of his life, his losses, and his hopes. The alien girl's powers grew stronger, and Jacques learned how to help her control them. They trained together, preparing for the challenges ahead. Each day brought new dangers, but also new moments of friendship and courage. Jacques no longer felt alone, and the girl no longer felt trapped. One night, as the ship drifted near a glowing nebula, Jacques looked at the alien girl and smiled. He knew their journey was far from over, but with her by his side, he was ready to face anything. Suddenly, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke, cold and clear, demanding the return of the girl. Jacques stood tall, his voice steady as he replied, "We will not give her up. She is free now." The voice laughed, cruel and harsh. "You cannot hide forever, human. We will find you." Jacques ended the call and turned to the alien girl. "We must stay strong and keep moving," he said. The alien girl nodded, her eyes full of determination. Together, they prepared for whatever would come next. Their fight was not over, but their bond was stronger than ever. They were ready to face the galaxy, side by side. The stars stretched out before Jacques and the tiny alien girl as their ship glided through space. The danger behind them felt heavy, but hope grew stronger in their hearts. Jacques looked at the girl, who smiled softly, her eyes full of light. For the first time, she was free, not locked in a cage. Not a prize, but someone with a future. They had traveled far from the market and the city full of shadows. The galaxy was vast and unknown, but Jacques no longer feared it. He held the cage now empty and silent, a symbol of what they had escaped. The alien girl reached out, touching his hand gently, as if to say thank you. Jacques thought about the road ahead, full of new challenges and chances. He knew enemies still hunted them, but their bond made them strong. They were no longer just a gambler and a captive, but friends and partners. Together, they would find a new home, a place where they could be safe. The ship's engines hummed quietly as they moved through the stars. The alien girl told Jacques stories with her eyes and small gestures. Jacques shared his dreams, his hope for a life without fear or loneliness. They laughed sometimes, their voices soft in the quiet cabin. One day, they found a small planet, green and bright. Jacques looked at the surface. Full of trees and clear water, he smiled, knowing this could be the place to start again. The alien girl's eyes sparkled with excitement, her small hands clapping. Softly, they landed the ship gently among the trees. The fresh air filled their lungs, and the sun warmed their faces. For the first time, the alien girl stepped out without fear. She ran freely, laughing, a sound like music to Jacques' ears. Jacques watched her, feeling a new hope inside. He realized that freedom was more than just escaping a cage. It was about finding a place to belong, to live without chains. The tiny alien girl was no longer trapped, and neither was he, as they explored the planet. They found other creatures, friendly and kind. The alien girl's small size no longer made her weak but special. Jacques helped her learn the new world, teaching her how to gather food and build shelter. They worked together, their friendship growing stronger every day. But even in this new place, Jacques knew they must be careful. The galaxy was full of danger, and their past could catch up with them. He kept watch each night, ready to protect the girl with his life. The alien girl grew brave, using her powers to help and defend. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Jacques and the alien girl sat by a fire, sharing stories and dreams. She whispered her name to him again, and he smiled. He promised to remember it always, a symbol of their new life, together. They looked up at the stars, shining bright and endless. Jacques felt peace for the first time in many years. The tiny alien girl leaned against him, trusting and free. They had fought for their freedom and found a new beginning. The future was unknown, but they faced it with courage. No longer alone or afraid, they were ready for whatever came. Their journey was far from over, but their hearts were full of hope. Jacques and the alien girl, free at last, ready to write their own story.